Roguelikes are so cool. Okay, yeah, I don't know why every time I make a video about a roguelike, I have to start with some 5-minute intro while I just show random ones in the back. Like, we don't need to do this every time. So yeah, check out this game Roboquest. It released on November 7th of 2023 by Ryseup Studios, but I've been playing it beforehand back when it was in early access. I remember when I first saw the game, something immediately caught my eyes. Watching the trailer, there was a certain appearance that I found to be incredibly alluring. Something I knew I would need to get my hands on that highly piqued my interest in this game. If y'all know my taste by now, it's pretty obvious what I'm talking about. I mean, if y'all have been paying attention, I've shown it quite a few times by now, so I'll stop hiding the truth. I'm of course talking about the double-barreled sawed-off shotguns. Like, holy smokes! Are we playing Marathon or what, buddy? Do the creators know about Marathon? That had to be the inspiration. These are the Marathon shotguns, it has to be. The sawed-off shotguns to be dual-wielded in Marathon stand as one of the coolest shotguns to be put into a video game. The super shotgun from Doom is amazing, honestly, probably my husband. The sawed-off shotgun from Blood is immaculate. But the double trouble akimbo slayers from Marathon are my gods. That's not a banana in my pocket. I am just happy to see you. When I saw these dual-wielded buckshot gloves of glory in my viewing of this trailer, I knew I had to get this game to feel them. And yes, the robot is hot. Don't ask how I found out about this game. Anywho, what we got on our hands, as y'all can see, is an FPS roguelike, or roguelite? I know people always tell me the difference like every single time. I just don't care to remember why. Rogue, I should just say that. That's pretty smart. I think I've said this before, but even though I've played some first person shooter roguelikes before, I always like how much roguelikes as a genre can add and flip other genres on their head. That so many connected to the same genre can present different ideas. I feel like it's such a creative genre that can be taken in so many different ways. But I suppose to set the scene, I'll talk about just what we're doing in this game. What is our Roboquest? The story basically starts with this gamer, Max, driving around in her van through a desert when she comes across a destroyed robot. Using her engineering skills, as she has quite a number of friendly robots already, she rebuilds this robot, and they turn out to be a guardian, with the Roboquest of escorting people to somewhere known as Haven 8. Humanity has kind of been screwed over, and this haven serves as a safe place for the ones that remain. So the two set off there, stopping all rogue robots along the way. And I like that fun vibe that these two have despite the state of the world. I like the whole little girl and her big buff robot friend. Max is pretty cool and I like her personality. The main plot is told in this comic book style, which I like, and it also kind of fits the game's aesthetics, as it matches the effects, such as when guns shoot, they have the onomatopoeia thing going on. Throughout the game, you'll be able to see the story in cutscenes between levels, progressing the story of Max in the Guardian's quest. The deeper side of the stories fall towards the optional logs that players can find by exploring areas. These really fill out the world, coming from the perspectives of many characters and tell what really happened to bring us to this point. I genuinely found this stuff kind of interesting. I'm not typically a fan of games resorting to text logs for stories, but hey, this is an action-focused roguelike, and I think this is a great way of handling the story. After you see a cutscene once, it doesn't show up again, same with the logs. It creates a smooth gameplay experience of just focusing on jumping from level to level, getting that run, trying again. And if I want to reread logs or rewatch cutscenes, I can do that back at the hub in between runs. And let me tell you, there's a lot of logs. So even though I've been kind of brief on the story, I'm not even sure if I'm entirely correct, just because there's still a lot I don't know. and I like discovering more about the world through these. It does add some spice to the playthroughs. What I'm trying to say is that Wall Street Slim is my favorite character. And I have no clue why I keep giving this dude my power cells every time I see him. But Slim is chill as hell and definitely someone I'd hang with. So eat the fuck up, gamer. Oh, snap. Also like the hero robot going around, they're notoriously fun. This game goes for a very cel-shaded look. I think that's the right term. I guess it works for the comic aesthetic, as I said earlier. It is pretty simple, I suppose, but it looks fine. And what matters is that it was never distracting or got in the way of the gameplay. Also, the robots are all cute, and that's what really matters. I think the music works. It's very wub wub and it's sort of just noise at points, but I'm totally fine with that. It's dynamic too, which is always neat. So there's definitely some stick out songs that are just straight up bops, like the final level song, the scrapyard, or the credits theme. But regardless, they all serve their function of the calm moments in between fights to the adrenaline pumping action of battles. This game would definitely not be the same without its music for the fights. However, it's pretty clear by now that where this game seeks to shine its strongest is, well, the gameplay. And yeah, it's pretty great, so let's dig in on it. First things first is choosing a class. There's different guardians to play as, each with a primary and secondary ability alongside a passive. For example, the starting guardian has what I like to call the ignorance shield, that low-key just makes you invincible and allows you to run in and go wild, alongside a melee attack that upon defeating an enemy with it, they drop bonus healing cells. This is the class that you start with, but the more you progress through the game and explore areas, you will end up unlocking more. And each guardian plays the game in a very different way, throwing javelins, air dashing with a dagger, or deploying drones. It's honestly kinda hard to pick a favorite when they're all fun. I love the commander because I don't even need to find a shotgun or a rocket launcher, they already come equipped with one. Alongside a fury passive where they get more movement speed every time they defeat an enemy for a short while. But now I'm starting to fall in love with the recon, who just dashes around and shanks enemies with a dagger. I like that the dash stuns too, so I can use my knowledge of enemy priority and dash over to the annoying enemies first. Honestly, by this point, I might just be a recon one trick. This game is one of those newfangled movement shooters that have been popping off as of late. As I understand, we started with the retro 90 FPS throwbacks, and now the new wave of indie FPS games are focused heavily on movement. And I won't lie, when I say I love fast FPS games, I mean games like Doom where the player just moves fast. I don't think I'll ever get used to things like sprint buttons and crouch slides, but it's here. Alongside a double jump, you can even jump on enemies' heads, dealing damage and refreshing your double jump. Just be a little mindful of what enemies you're jumping on, or, well, yeah. But coolest of all, we got the rail grind. Hell yeah. Put on your mother soap shoes, my gamers, because if we're going out with style. I love this. Such a fun vibe grinding across these cities, just keeping up that momentum. It's endlessly satisfying dodging around enemy fire. There's so much creativity to the movement that where a player enters a room is their choice. It's an endless sandbox of creativity. Strike from above, or run through the room and then back, doing it in reverse. Or just go hog wild with 2 shotguns in a dream, just bouncing around and blasting everyone. Like, take a look at this clip. I don't even think I took damage and I was just running around twirling my mouse, man. It's wild. There's a key focus on aggression in this game, Enemies drop healing cells that disappear very fast, and besides checkpoints where you can hang out with Max's robots, this is going to be your main source of healing. Another incredible idea of aggression is these rooms with these rail robots. Activating when the player enters the proximity of the room, they slowly travel across a rail, speeding up when attacked and eventually disappearing. Rushing in to take these enemies out can give a huge reward of health and XP. And when you're low health and in desperate need of a heal, you'll need to risk it all in order to make up for your past mistakes. So there is the other side of the coin that if you just stay far away and snipe, you won't have to worry about healing in the first place. I felt this a lot myself. I think it's quite easy to just snipe enemies from far away. However, this game doesn't shy from shoving you into a room, locking the door behind you, and saying, hey, fight this endurance match of enemy waves. And these kind of locked in scenarios become a lot more present later on in the game. So you can't always play like a Pop-Tart, even if it may be pretty effective, most notably with the Javelineer class, and especially the Engineer class. But we'll talk about the Engineer later. Y'all may have noticed I mentioned XP earlier, so what's that about? Well, after defeating enough enemies, the player can level up, increasing their max HP and unlocking a perk for them to choose. While there are some general perks that all classes can choose, every class has a pretty sizable list of passives that only they can obtain that add on to their abilities, like getting a movement and fire rate boost while using the Ignorance Shield, upgrading the Engineer's drones to shoot more attacks, and straight up changing some abilities, like I can change my dagger as the Recon to be a katana and just go to town. It's actually kind of fun. Or even adding elements to your attacks. I slept on that at first, but after experiencing the double-barreled shotgun that stunned enemies, let's just say my life changed forever. There's layers to this too. A lot of passives are hidden behind other ones, granting synergies notated by the previously selected passive glowing. And these passives can drastically change how you play through a run, what strategies you focus on, abilities, and weapons to use. Sure, it can suck to not get the passive you want, or to be unable to relive a super fun run you had earlier, just because out of the sheer quantity of selectable perks, it didn't give you your favorite. But one of the key factors of roguelikes is preventing the players from just doing the same thing over and over, encouraging and even forcing them to change and take risks. Like I said, I ignored elements for a good majority of this game. But on one run I saw my perk options, didn't like any of them, so I decided to try out the elements, and it's like, dang, I wish I did this sooner, this rules. It helps keep repeated playthroughs of classes feel fresh, while also still keeping that base kit that you play the class for in the first place. So I mean, yeah, how are the weapons, right? Well, I'm not sure if I need to speak for them, as they talk quite well, and definitely are getting their point across. There's a decent variety of weapons of what you would expect: assault rifles, shotguns, pistols, all the expected stuff, with a few more interesting guns and weapons. Some of these guns have more traditional reloading mechanics, while others sort of have an overheat meter to balance, known as energy. For most of the game, the player can only hold on to a max of 2 guns, so deciding what you want can be tough. However, it's the swapping between guns where the true genius of this game shows, and some of its best ideas. So take a look at this. This is what makes this game. I fired a bit out of my first gun before switching to my other, and bam, right here. When swapping to a different gun, your other weapon begins to automatically reload. Perfect. Absolutely simple, incredibly smart. This is what encourages the player to switch between their guns. Fire some shots with one, then quickly shift to another to keep up the pace while in the fray. And this is followed up on with another incredible idea. The reload animation can be interrupted at any time. You are not locked into this. You're free to cancel it into a gun switch or your character's abilities, even an alt fire. Being able to just freely surf around these maps, swapping between my 2 shotguns as I dash to and fro from enemy to enemy, is honestly meditative. I'm not even kidding. This game puts me in a state I can't describe, where my brain ironically just shuts off, and things just become a blur of instinctual, pure gaming bliss. I legit do not think when I play this game. It's kind of zen-like in that way, that I can just boot up this game when I need to clear my mind. And this is all thanks to the high amount of freedom and expression this game offers. Settling back on the guns, I do have quite a bit more to say on them. While I may have painted them to be a tad vanilla and boring, there is luckily an affix system to help make these guns more unique. These can do a number of things, such as marking enemies so they take extra damage, ricocheting and bouncing bullets, dealing elemental damage, or dealing more damage with its first half of the magazine. While the affixes are random, quite a number of guns come with affixes by default on them to help differentiate guns of similar types. For example, pistols typically have a sidekick affix that allows takedowns with them to auto-reload your other gun, encouraging you to switch to them when the enemy is weak to keep up the rhythm and so you can use your main gun for longer. Or take the Behemoth shotgun, which only has 3 shots. However, if you get a kill with it, it automatically reloads itself, letting you go on long kill streaks if you know which enemies to target. How about the Bandito gun, a magnum that does extra damage when hitting opponents' weak spots. These preset affixes help give these guns a bit more identity. But I think the real game changer is how alternate fires work. Alt fires are randomly placed on guns and can add all sorts of new flavor to a weapon. Take a shotgun that shoots grenades, an assault rifle that can unleash a shotgun blast. Or hell, check out these shotguns I have that just let me rocket jump on command. And rocket jump doesn't deal damage to you in this game because it's gamer excellent. Combine this with the affixes, and I can have guns that I typically never use now be the weapon I struggle to even think of getting rid of just because of how much I love it. There's a sort of scaling to weapons, as they have levels and rarities. Rarity seems to affect the affixes placed on the weapon. Common guns don't typically have them, but rare guns definitely have a lot. Levels, however, seem to affect damage and the drop-off range of damage. While this may seem to be forcing the player to switch guns as the run goes on, they can stay pretty committed to a gun, as the beginning and middle of a level have these checkpoint areas where you can chill with Max and or other robots. It's here you can do quite a number of things, such as utilizing Max's chest where you get to choose between some weapons. Weapons can also be found quite commonly from defeating enemies, alongside secret chests and chests obtained from maneuvering through these challenge rooms that typically have a large focus on mobility. However, in both cases, you can say screw the guns, I want power cells. Power cells are a currency that's exclusive to a run and can be used to interact with Max's robots, purchasing new guns, upgrading current ones, or even buying these passive cards that can also show up at Max's chest. There's a wide variety of these coming in quite a number of rarities that once again have a pretty big impact on how you play the game. There's a lot of choice with what to spend the power cells on, and the player will never have enough to get everything they want. It never falls into that trap of feeling like a formulaic process of just quickly doing the same action and then moving on. There's thought to be had here and a decision to be made. Power cells can be earned as random drops from enemies, alongside ranking rewards for players, being judged by how much XP they gained in a level, alongside time spent in a level, which can be viewed at all times here under the map. I love the roster of enemies. I mean, they kick my ass, but I love them. They all have their own attacks to learn, and strategies that the players will have to develop to defeat them. I won't cap, some of these robots have my number. Like, get me the fuck out of this level in particular, man. I get destroyed here every time. Yeah, it's definitely a love and hate relationship with some of these enemies. Adding on to this are elite enemies that can spawn later on and depending on certain player passives. They are a whole new threat on their own. Another nice thing about the robots being enemies is that they can be a lot more creatively designed in terms of their appearance. I know y'all are just rolling your eyes like, here we go, Spacey thirsting over robots again, but it's not like that. You see how most of these robot enemies have a red eye? These are their weak points, and a lot of enemies have them placed on different parts of their, well, body. And this creates a lot more of an interesting and dynamic enemy type than just every enemy being weak in their head. Like, some have eyes on the side, some have like eye stalks that you need to shoot. It gives you new places to aim. And the different sizes of these robots also add to their differences. It makes them stand out. Like, how many first-person shooters have you played where it feels like there's only one enemy because every enemy is just a human with a gun firing at you, you know? I will have to give special points to the bosses. I feel like so many first-person shooters really drop the ball on bosses. It's tough. They typically end up being pushovers, dying too fast, or just being solved with the simple strategy of strafing around them or cover peeking. However, Roboquest does a fantastic job at its roster of bosses, mostly, perfectly encapsulating and showcasing what this game is about, forcing the player to constantly be moving, jumping, dodging. It's not too uncommon that I need to stop firing so I can turn around and run in order to avoid an attack. These are what bosses in first-person games should be, a test of the game's mechanics and what the player has learned so far, what the creators want the player to do. It's like a lesson. Full Sail fantastic. There aren't too many bosses, but which ones you face seem to depend on the current area you're at. Speaking of which, the level progression in this game is pretty neat. It kind of reminds me of Outrun, where at the end of a level, the player will have a split choice between different levels to go to, building their own route to Haven 8. And these levels have their own unique environments, enemies, and interactables. Hell, maybe even some NPCs to interact with, like this cooler with the swim shorts. I dig the vibe, surfer. It's a bit of a slap to the face of the ranking system based on time, but there is an encouragement to explore areas. Levels have secrets, NPCs with quests, and with enough searching, players can find themselves gaining keys to new paths and areas to farther diversify their route in future runs. It's kinda cool that the game never really tells you where to find any of these. It leaves it fully in your hands, and I do respect that, even if at times I felt kinda lost on finding new areas. But it did make the eventual discovery all the more satisfying. Like, dang, I got a key to a past door. Let me quit this run, am I right? Like, I already want to do the next run. It's already setting me up to keep replaying the game. However, much like in real life, eventually you're gonna die. And when that happens, it's back to base camp. I do like the story reason for your revival, as I believe the idea is that Max just rebuilds the Guardian, but potentially using like the new things they found to make the different classes of said Guardian. At least that's how I picture it. It's here we can change difficulties, view cutscenes, change classes, or even view our masteries. Yeah, weapons have like a mastery system, where after using them enough, you get their card. Enemy cards can also be found by defeating them, and this lets us view their 3D models. Neat. Though I do wish there was some sort of class mastery as well. Maybe for using the class enough for beating the game with said class. And yes, I'm only saying this because I want to look at these cute ass robots with the 3D model viewer. Is that a surprise by this point? I will say, with that in mind, it is a pretty neat perspective to be playing as such a big character in a first person game that sort of accounts for that size. I don't think your hurt box is the same, I'm not sure, but it is kind of cool how you can just look down at smaller enemies and characters. Anyways, let's talk about some other things we can do at the base camp. We can do multiplayer, pairing up with a fellow brobot, which sounds fun. I can't really comment on the multiplayer because I didn't play this game with anyone. And I'm gonna be real, I don't think anyone would want to play this game with me because I would probably just be dead silent the whole time. And I know what y'all are thinking, dang Spacey, you're that antisocial? And yeah, I mean, and no, it's like I said, when I play this game, my brain sort of just blinks off. You will straight up see me jumping into groups of enemies and just spinning around carrying 2 shotguns and probably dying very often. I don't think anyone would want to play with that. Though I do like that from what I read, that players can revive one another, but doing so splits their health. That's a good way of handling roguelike multiplayer without having to make dead players wait, while also not destroying the balance of the game. Though, that probably could still happen anyways. The most notable thing to do at the base camp, however, is to spend wrenches. See, this is one of those roguelikes with an out-of-run upgrade system. You obtain wrenches through runs, and with them, purchase things that can greatly help your next run, increasing max HP, allowing Max's chest to have more weapons. Quite a few of these are kind of big. I'll be honest, I typically hate this kind of shit in roguelikes, because what it implies is that you're not expected, or maybe not even allowed, to beat this game until you grind your head enough to buy enough upgrades to reach that expectation. It's that sort of flash game feel of make as much progress as possible, fail, collect what you can, upgrade, and try again. I don't like that because it feels cheap. I love roguelikes because there's always that idea that you can win on your first try. It's highly unlikely, but it's always a possibility. And that's because roguelikes have an inherent focus on understanding the game, using the knowledge from repeated runs to learn the enemies, the bosses, what items do and which ones you're good with. And when you do finally get that beautiful run where you finally break through and win, it's an amalgamation of all of your previous runs, your knowledge gained and growth as a player. Not, hey, I didn't really get better, I just bought enough upgrades so the game's easier now. That's why I always prefer roguelikes that purchasable out-of-run upgrades are more like side grades, unlockable weapons, classes, or modifiers to make the game more interesting while not inherently making it easier. I guess to give this game a little bit of credit, none of these upgrades are like directly, well, very few of these upgrades are directly helping the player. It's not just damage up, speed up, armor up. It's not boring shit like that. It's giving you the ability to reroll, giving you more options. But there are some that just directly help the player, like increasing max HP or starting with more power cells. And there are some positives to this wrench system, of course. I definitely don't think Roboquest is anywhere near as egregious as some roguelikes are with this. Let me tell ya, Roboquest is a very hard game. Like, it's so hard, there's 2 easy difficulties. I have played for like 9 hours and I have legit only won like once. It's a super punishing game with a high focus on skill. Like, I do not see most casuals or non-FPS fans beating this game on normal. It's brutal. So giving these wrenches out to players that can't handle holding L's feel like they made some progress is smart. And it does build up the hope that eventually you will be so decked on upgrades that you'll probably just win the game. But how many upgrades you need to do so is sort of the proof of your skill. I barely had like a third of the upgrades before I beat this game, and genuinely feel like I beat this game earlier than I was expected. But it's not just with the wrenches. Through exploration, players can also find these power crystals that give buffs to the player and help out during the final fight. So it's nice that players can do a number of things to feel like they're still progressing in some way, while also getting slowly better at the game. I'm sort of mixed on it, but for Roboquest, I think I lean towards positive on it. Especially when I proved to myself that I didn't end up needing most of these upgrades in order to finish the game on normal. Speaking of which, golly jeezy, the final level. I don't think I have ever felt such exhilaration from playing a video game. This was an experience unlike anything else. Even with my, let's be real, kind of overpowered summoning build with the engineer, I got so close to death so many times. Honestly, when I first entered the level and went into the first room, I thought to myself, this isn't possible. Like, I legit thought I was out of my league by miles. That the thought of winning this was a non-chance. God, the music is so good too. And going into it all for the first time, the final boss, oh my god, what an experience. There's no roller coaster that could give me the same thrill as going through the final level for the first time on that run I did. I legit had to like take a break, go outside, get some fresh air, lay down and die. Y'all can decide which order. Like, I don't know if this was healthy for my body, but goddamn was it pretty dope. That one run on its own solidified my thoughts on this game. That it was such a fun time, even if I was playing a pretty lame ass build. And what's wild? This was all on standard difficulty, not hard or the unlockable very hard. I don't even know. I mean, granted, I probably did beat this game far sooner than I was perhaps expected. I didn't have many upgrades or any of those power crystals that can be found. Hell, this was the run I've just first started getting gadgets on. I haven't even talked about the gadgets. That's something for y'all to discover. Though I still kinda wonder if they were better as an equipable accessories like they were back in early access, rather than just toggleable modifiers / buffs. I don't know. I guess I have some other smaller problems with this game. Like the Uncle Jim fight or whatever, you know, it's kinda bullshit. And I don't know, whoever thought about the idea of getting stunned in such a movement-based shooter would be a fun idea. Like, why the hell do they keep giving me this stupid-ass shock room? Please, something else. Also, there's a lot of weird-ass items, like these purple passives that have like a downside, like 15% chance to burn an enemy, but a 5% chance you instantly die. Like, are there people who use these? But at the end of the day, I'm bouncing around blasting enemies with my akimbo double-barreled shotguns as a big cute robot. Like, damn. Is there anything else I'm supposed to want? Yeah, maybe there's other roguelikes I like more, but what other ones do I get to live out this fantasy? Kick ass. It's always a little tough when it comes to roguelikes to know when you've played enough to warrant your thoughts on it overall. Like, I'm still missing a character, don't nearly have any of the unlockables, haven't used most of the weapons, but I technically beat the game. Of course, with roguelikes, beating the game is usually like the first step, like now the game begins. But I'm pretty satisfied. I feel like I've seen a lot of this game, and I did do a couple run afterwards and unlocked more things. And I'm sure to drop by and give this game a quickie play from time to time. This is a roguelike, and these games tend to get content updates throughout its time. And I'm curious what Ryseup Studios is planning for the future of this game. From what I read, I would imagine that they're going to be holding on to this game for the long run. And go them! This game rules, y'all made a good one, right? So yeah, if you somehow made it through all my gameplay and didn't get motion sick, then I think you're qualified to play this game. It's fun. And sometimes that's all the game needs to be. Sometimes that's all I'm really looking for. A quick burst of fun to hold me over for 30 minutes to an hour. This game accomplishes that pacing as well and fast as it does with its kinetic movement and combat. It's a fantastic time. And I think by now my gameplay has allowed you to make up your mind on it. If you want to check it out, link in the description below as always. And I'll catch y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. And thanks for supporting too. Seltris, Kenchiago, and all these other gamers supporting me on Ko-Fi, getting videos a week early. Until next time y'all, I'm out of here.